Sir, why does National treat provincial New Zealand with such utter contempt?
Melissa Lee.
Actually, recovering from a comment that the previous speaker said, I always thought of Mr. Phil Twyford as a gentleman, but I couldn't believe that he was attacking somebody with lots of hair, especially since he's slightly follically challenged. It is generally accepted. Maybe that's what happens. Maybe that's what happens in Labour, because...
Point of order, the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove. Order. A point of order has been called, and it will be heard in silence. The Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Mr. Speaker, if anybody's follically challenged, it's me on our side, not Phil Twyford. I take that title.
Order. It was no point of order, but let's get on with the member's speech.
It's very noble of you, Mr. Cosgrove. Maybe that's what happens. As I said, Mr. Twyford, I always thought of him as a gentleman, but that's what happens in Labour, that you have to have venom within their caucus to actually show it in the House to actually get somewhere. It is generally accepted that side of the House lack credibility. They focus on sideshows, obviously, and we've seen that performance in the House. And often those kinds of sideshows fail miserably. And I can remember a particular case of a bus that went around the country that was supposed to have public meetings that nobody turned up to. And it was such a sideshow that was so memorable that nobody remembers what that was about. Perhaps Mr. Cunliffe will have a better chance. He's turned up to House, to Parliament without his moustache, shaved off, clean-shaven, new look, new tan. Perhaps he might be the success story of the Labour Party by toppling Mr. David Shearer as the leader. Perhaps the house boxes of the Labour Party are in fact the telling signs. I don't know if other members have noticed, but the Labour Party house boxes do not have their normal signage on the boxes. They've removed them all, and it seems perhaps it is the new label that is required, perhaps because of the imminent new leader, maybe. But sir, those sideshows aside, let's talk about...
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
I think it is one of the rules of this House that you are not to be brought into debate, and my understanding is that the things were taken off our boxes at your recommendation.
Well, the Speaker's not going to be brought into the debate, but neither should the member's speech be interrupted. Melissa Lee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let's not actually ponder about what's happening over on that side. Let's talk about the priorities of this government. And previously, Honourable Chris Tremaine talked about the 4 priorities of this government, and they are responsibly managing the government's finances, building a more competitive and productive economy, delivering a better public service, and rebuilding Christchurch. Sir, I want to talk about the government's finances. In an economic climate where New Zealand is like 1/4 of 1% of the world's economy, I mean, we are affected negatively or positively by what's happening around us. And traditionally, countries that actually did better than New Zealand are suffering in this economic climate. And we can see that in Europe. But in New Zealand, we are actually on track to getting back into surplus in 2014 and 15. That would mean that we will become one of the very few developed economies not increasing public debt in these difficult times. And to me, that is fantastic management. So, how are we actually achieving this? Well, better management skills, I guess, on this side of the House compared to the other side. And also about building a more competitive and productive economy. Budget 2012 forecast economic growth on average of around 3%. And I think Chris Tremaine talked about our neighbouring countries, the growing countries in Asia. For example, Indonesia, which has 245 million people. It has a market which is like 60 times bigger than New Zealand, and they're growing way faster than New Zealand. And we need to actually entice their investment, their tourism numbers into New Zealand to actually spend their money in New Zealand. I think it's actually very, very important. On average, we have grown 3% a year over the last. We will grow 3% in the next 4 years, with 154,000 new jobs created. That's on top of the 60,000 new jobs already created in the past 2 years. National is increasing annual spending on science and innovation by 385 million over the next 4 years to more than 1.3 billion a year by 2015 and 16. So earlier this afternoon, we were talking about investment and Crayford Farms. Well, I have to say that, I cannot believe that we've had xenophobic rhetoric coming from the opposition, and shame on them. Grow up.
Moana Maki.